The skyline of New York City is not a testament to architectural beauty. It is a physical map of the world's most successful steel hegemony. Welcome to the secret history of the skyscraper, where steel and glass were used to build the world's first vertical central banks. While the public looks up in awe at the heights, the elite look down from the summits, managing the global flow of value from the clouds. The skyscraper was never about office space. It was about creating sovereign vertical territory that exists above the laws of the street. In the early 20th century, the titans of steel realized that a building could function as a massive, high-speed ledger of control. Steel hegemony refers to the era when the physical height of a building was directly proportional to the liquidity it commanded. These towers were built as fortresses of information, where the secrets of the global economy were stored in vaults high above the reach of the taxman. The skyscrapers of New York were the first physical servers, housing the massive paper trails of international debt and trade. Every floor of a Manhattan skyscraper was a layer of the ledger, organized by its proximity to the true power at the top. The elite used the steel hegemony to centralize the world's wealth into a single vertical square mile of Manhattan. These buildings were designed to be self-sustaining ecosystems, private city-states that could survive even if the rest of the world burned. The vertical central bank model allowed for the instantaneous movement of capital between floors, bypassing all traditional public gatekeepers. We are witnessing the legacy of the skyscraper, where the physical height has now been replaced by algorithmic depth. Steel beams of the Empire State and the Chrysler Building are the ancestral skeletons of the modern digital financial system. This is the architecture of extraction, a design specifically created to pull the wealth of the hinterlands into the urban steel hubs. The skyscraper provided the aura of permanence that a central bank needs to convince the public that their money is safe. But behind the limestone and steel, the wealth was as liquid and mobile as the wind hitting the top of the tower. The steel hegemony realized that by owning the skyline, they owned the narrative of progress. You are told these buildings represent innovation, but they actually represent consolidation of the highest order. The penthouse was the original command center, where the shadow wars of the 1920s and 30s were planned and funded. We see the vertical model being used today by tech giants who build campus fortresses that mimic the isolation of the skyscraper. The steel hegemony used the height of their towers to exert psychological dominance over the working class below. These buildings are monuments to debt, constructed with the very interest extracted from the labor of millions. The vertical central bank never closes. Its lights stay on as a signal to the world that the ledger is always active. Every elevator ride in a New York skyscraper is a journey through the levels of global sovereignty. The steel was the hardware and the banking laws were the software of the first integrated financial machine. We are living in the shadow of the steel, where the decisions made in those boardrooms a century ago still dictate our interest rates. The verticality allowed for a hierarchy of secrecy that is impossible to achieve in a horizontal landscape. The most sensitive shadow inventories were always kept on the floors that didn't appear on the public elevator directory. The steel hegemony was the physical manifestation of the transition from mercantilism to financial imperialism. These towers were the nodes of a global network that connected the mines of Africa to the factories of Europe and the banks of New York. The vertical central bank was the first entity to operate at a timescale that was different from the rest of humanity. While the world lived in cycles, the skyscraper lived in real-time accumulation. The steel hegemony used the skyscraper to anchor their power to a specific piece of the earth, making it unmovable. But they also made the value within the building weightless, allowing it to flee at the first sign of trouble. We see the skyscraper index today, where the height of new towers predicts the coming of the next great liquidation. This is the vertical pulse of the global economy, a rhythm set by the masters of the steel hegemony. The skyscrapers were the bridges between the physical past and the digital future. They taught the elite how to abstract wealth, moving it from land and labor to steel and speculation. The vertical central bank model is the reason why Manhattan remains the ground zero of the global financial map. Every stock exchange and commodity pit was just a subroutine of the skyscraper's master program. The steel hegemony created a synthetic reality where the height of the tower was more real than the depth of the mine. This is the grand illusion of the skyline, a display of strength to hide the fragility of the system. The towers were built with gilded ribs, steel frames that supported the weight of the world's sovereign debt. We are witnessing the ghosting of the skyscraper as the real power moves into server farms and deep cloud. But the vertical logic remains. The higher you are, the less the rules of the ground apply to you. The steel hegemony was the alpha version of the global ledger. These buildings were the calculators of their time, crunching the numbers of empire with every passing hour. The vertical central bank was the only place where the world's S-time was synchronized to the master clock. We see the steel legacy in the way modern financial districts around the world mimic the New York skyline. It is a universal language of submission and sovereignty. The skyscrapers are vertical vaults, where the physical documents of power are still guarded by private security. The steel hegemony realized that by controlling the vertical axis, they could bypass the horizontal friction of borders. This is geopolitics of the Z-axis, the most underrated dimension of global control. The skyscraper allowed the elite to look over the horizon, anticipating crises before they reached the street. Every Art Deco detail was a coded message of dynastic intent. The vertical central bank was the incubator for the technocratic elite we see today. They learned how to manage populations from the heights, treating the city below as a dataset. The steel hegemony is the reason why the top floor is always the most expensive. It's the premium on reality. We are living in a vertical prison where the walls are made of debt and the ceiling is the skyline. The architecture of the skyscraper is the anatomy of the 1%. It is a nervous system made of copper wires and steel beams. The vertical central bank was the first to automate the flow of value using gravity and pneumatics. The steel hegemony used the skyscraper to mortgage the atmosphere, selling air rights as if they were land. This was the first synthetic asset. Wealth created out of literally nothing but vertical space. You see the STL blueprint in every digital platform that tries to capture and verticalize a market. The skyscraper is the parent of the algorithm. The vertical central bank was the sanctuary where the gold standard was secretly dismantled and replaced by steel and paper. This is the hidden alchemy of the Manhattan skyline. The towers are vertical conductors of global anxiety, thriving on the volatility of the world below. The steel hegemony is the only map that explains why the center of the world is a vertical line. We see the skyscraper as art, but the elite see it as infrastructure for extraction. This is the vertical realism of the 21st century. The steel hegemony is self-replicating as every global city tries to build its own vertical central bank. But there is only one original ledger, and it is etched into the bedrock of New York. The vertical central bank model is the ultimate filter for global capital. It distills the wealth of the planet into pure influence. We are witnessing the final ascent of the steel hegemony before it transcends into the digital void. The skyscrapers are the relics of a physical empire that has already moved online. But the vertical thinking still rules the world. The steel hegemony taught the elite how to be above it all. This is the psychology of the summit, the caste system of the cloud. The vertical central bank was the womb of the Great Reset. It is where the new rules of reality were first drafted and tested. The steel hegemony is the foundation of the digital ID and the global social credit system. It is a chain of command that starts in the bedrock and ends in the stratosphere. We see the skyscraper as a symbol of freedom, but it is a monument to capture. Every pane of glass is a one-way mirror through which the owners watch the other. The vertical central bank is the ultimate fortress in the liquidity war. It is where the sovereign liquidation is coordinated and executed. The steel hegemony is the hidden hand that redraws the map every time a new tower is topped out. This is the secret history of the world's most famous skyline. Understand the vertical ledger or remain a subject of the street. The skyline is the signature of the masters of the global ledger. In the race for the top, the steel hegemony has already won the world.